Do you feel frustrated trying to grow your franchise? Are you having trouble balancing your consumer and franchise development marketing? Do you wish there was an easier way? Imagine if you had a proven roadmap to take your franchise's marketing from costing you to making you money. That's why we've created the Franchise Growth Blueprint. We walk you through the exact same process that we use to run franchise marketing campaigns for our clients at scale that has resulted in triple-digit growth. This blueprint isn't for anyone. It's not for people just starting a franchise. It's not for franchises without long-term goals. This is for franchises that want to scale up their marketing in a predictable and profitable way using a proven roadmap. If you want to sell more franchises, keep your current franchisees happy, and learn from people who have already done it, go to franchisegrowthblueprint.com and sign up today. That's franchisegrowthblueprint.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Franchise Marketing Podcast. I'm really excited today because we have Marietta Snetsinger with us from Ascend Franchise. Marietta, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Cool. Yeah, no problem. I know I've been talking about having you on the podcast for a while, so I'm so happy we finally get to do it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So for those who don't know you and Ascend Franchise, could you introduce it?
Yeah, so I am a franchise educator. I help successful entrepreneurs convert their business to a franchise model. I help them get what I kind of say FDD ready. So when the lawyer hands you that big list of things that you need to do, I can help you get ready so that you can move into the franchise world with confidence, with a proper franchise operating system, and knowing exactly what it is that you do differently and better than your competitors.
Wow, very cool. So how did you first get started with this?
Well, it's funny. I have been in the franchise space in Canada and actually North America since 1995. So I think that's like 25 years, which is really hard to believe. In fact, it's actually just last month I hit that milestone.
Wow.
And I started off my career as a field consultant. So franchisee operations, actually in the field, working with franchisees as they were implementing the franchisor's operating system, the franchisor's business plan, and helping them do whatever they could do to be as profitable as possible within their market. And I transitioned over to franchise recruitment and sales. And I think if there is something that is a little bit different about me, it is that I do have worked in both of those areas and have a lot of experience, probably about equal experience in both the franchise operational support and development piece, as well as the franchise recruitment sales side of it. So I've had extensive experience in both of those. In 2011, I know myself well, and I know I'm highly entrepreneurial, and I started Ascend Franchise at that point. And, I dabbled in helping emerging newer franchisors, maybe under 20 units. I've done interim operational support. But over the last 2 to 3 years, I've gone really hardcore into the actual emerging franchisor, the conversion space, pre-FDD. And that's where I really am thriving. And that's a space I really love.
Wow, that's really cool. I love just the mountain of experience that you have. And as you mentioned, you have a very holistic view of what it really means to grow franchise systems like from the ground up. So
right.
What are some mistakes or hurdles that you see a lot of emerging franchises stumble on?
Yeah. So I think the biggest mistake is going to the market and thinking about really what you're selling. So selling something, but not really having the behind the scenes, the franchise operating system developed. It's like, oh, let's go to the franchise show, see who we can lure in, and then we'll go back and build the franchise operating system. And quite frankly, it does not work that way. You need to have the kind of the behind the scenes developed, thought through, and the proper system process in place in order to actually confidently go to that market and really attract franchisees that are in alignment with you and with your brand.
Cool, very cool. And you know what? That echoes a similar conversation that I was having with Craig from Local Handyman Group on building systems right from the get-go. So do you have any tips on where to start with getting these systems up and running?
Yeah, I think it's really begins with what are you doing now? What is really working well for your system today? Like, because that's really we're duplicating what you've done. We're not really trying to go out and create something brand new. We want to take what your existing uh, tools and your systems and process and really kind of write it down. So basically, writing it down and getting really clear about how you attract and retain customers. I think that's really critical before you ever begin to think about franchising your business. You better get a lot of clarity, a lot of practice and system and process just around that. Just even for the simple valuation of your business moving forward, that's a really great place to start.
Good point. Now, when you're saying attracting and retaining your customers, are you talking about on the consumer side or on the franchise development side?
I'll start with the consumer side. So, what is your unique selling proposition? What is it you do different, better than your competitors? How are you a subject matter expert in that particular area? And do you have a solid marketing plan that which is consistently delivering customers to you? And do you have a way of bringing them in to do business with you? And then, of course, servicing them once they've agreed to do business with you. So it's kind of like a two-part. Like, what are you doing to bring them in? What's your marketing plan to get them to come to you? And then once they made the decision to join you and to do business with you, what's that look like? Do you have that part of it documented? And, again, that repeatable, duplicatable system process to do that.
Totally. Yeah. It's one thing to attract new customers. It's another thing to really retain them because that's where the money is, right? Like once you have someone buying from you, the likelihood of them buying again or extending their lifetime value, it's so much easier compared to acquiring a new customer. So that's
Yeah,
I love it. You're hitting that nail right on the head. So
yeah.
what other struggles do you see a lot of emerging franchises come with?
Definitely the profitability piece.
Mhm.
How profitable are you? I really want to see a business that is more profitable than their competitors,
Mhm.
extremely profitable, so that when we start kind of building out the franchise model, there's some room there for you to obtain a percent of the customer sales as well as your franchisees. So that's why we kind of need it to be a little bit better than profitable. It's got to be extremely profitable.
Okay. And are there certain benchmarks that you recommend potential franchises hitting before even thinking about it? Or does it really depend? Like where do you kind of sit and recommend the
Yeah.
product you work with?
Typically, I like to see a business that is doing at least $500,000 a year in gross sales,
Mhm.
because generally speaking, I mean, obviously, margins matter, of course, but typically, when we see a business at that level of individual unit sales, there's probably enough gravy in there for others to also have a piece of it. And chances are, at that sales volume, you've also probably hit that other point of attracting and retaining customers and the duplication of that. So that's kind of one milestone point I would be KPI basically I would be looking for. And I also love to know if they've duplicated it themselves and have a second location. I mean, that's not absolutely critical, but it should certainly be in their near future plans to at least duplicate themselves. If nothing else, if it was 10 years ago that you started your first business, things have changed and cost to set up and startup might have also changed. So I like a more recent, if you will, duplication of the unit, the individual unit, franchise unit. That's kind of how I think about it. So you've got unit one, your initial unit, and then opening a second unit. I mean, that unit could always be your first franchise. You could actually award it as your first franchise. So it's not that you wouldn't get that investment back and you wouldn't have to have two locations forever, but it certainly is a really great learning experience for someone who's thinking about franchising.
Totally. So in a lot of conversations that I've had with franchise founders, there have kind of been two camps where it's like, I want to go really, 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 really fast, and
Mm.
I want to grow slowly and predictably.
Yeah.
So from what you've seen, how do you kind of balance your growth and your finances along with it
Yeah.
into those two mindsets?
Yeah, and what I've seen is the fast and quick. Typically, there's a high burnout, and it's hard to it's hard to catch up. If you've had a few failures, it's really hard to kind of, because that's generally typically what happens is if you go hard to get the wrong franchisees in your system, it's not like, you can basically release an employee. It's a lot harder to release a franchisee. So I'm kind of the slow and steady wins the race. And, quite frankly, internally, you probably don't have the internal resources to support a highly accelerated growth unless you have, it's not even financial resource. It's actual experience of managing that ongoing relationship with those franchisees. Just to be kind of thrust into it can be often challenging for a new and emerging franchisor.
Totally. So you brought up a great point about kind of essentially being picky about who your first few franchisees are. So do you have any tips on helping franchises be picky successfully?
Yeah. Oh, so often we hear, oh, my brother-in-law, oh, my cousin, or, and typically I kind of advise against that. I think it can be fraught with problems and challenges and expectations. But I think, again, back to that, having a solid franchise operating system established before you ever go to market can certainly help with avoiding some of those problems of making the wrong selections and choices early on. The other thing I'll say about that is that who we seek as a franchisee and who we want to attract as a franchisee from, day one, from when we first start to who we are looking for, maybe 5 years down the road, that may also evolve and change as our experience evolves and changes. And, early on, we may really be looking for, someone who might be a little bit more of a risk taker. And that's generally who's attracted early on. They are like, they're kind of want to be that, the first and the early adapters, if you will. And then as we kind of go down the path, we find maybe we need someone who's a little bit more interested in kind of following our franchise recipe and really preparing the recipe with the ingredients we're providing versus, kind of throwing something in willy-nilly that they want to do. That often happens early on, especially with the type of person who might be attracted to you early on.
That makes a lot of sense. I love that evolutionary aspect of of understanding that the franchisees that you start off with from a personality perspective may not always be a long-term fit as you grow your system. I love that. So speaking of growth and evolution, have you seen any other mistakes that franchises have been making?
I think you just kind of hit on something too that I think is really important, and it's kind of a mindset, but it's if we're creating world-class franchise systems, we know that we're always evolving and that we're always changing and that we're always, open to adapting. It's not like we're revamping everything every day, but always improving is a really great mantra I use in my own business. And it's really about, the best of the best and knowing that there are tweaks that can be made to make it better. So kind of that growth mindset of always evolving and, making changes when we need to, adapting, pivoting. I mean, gosh, we've just come through one of the largest pivots of our time. And, the franchisors that make it through this have probably had to do a fair amount of pivoting and adapting. So
totally. That's a great point. And with the whole crazy COVID situation, knocking on wood here, it looks like things are improving. How have you found emerging franchises adapting? And do you have any tips for them as they start to flesh out their systems?
I have to tell you, and I know you and I have been talking through this time, I have been so pleasantly surprised at the growth mindset of entrepreneurs who are actually embracing this time. I frankly have never been busier, which blows my mind. I thought, okay, well, I guess I'm probably going to be a bit slow, but it has not been that way at all. In fact, I've seen a lot of franchisors really embrace this time to work on their business, to really, maybe they've even, closed their doors for a few months and now they've actually got time to think and dream and plan for the next evolution of their business. And that may actually be franchising. And, like I said, I've been incredibly busy as a result of that, which is, allowed me to grow my business and, serve more clients and, again, always improving. I've totally I just shared with you before we started recording that I just kind of been revamping my whole program around the Franchisor Blueprint, which is where we teach you what you need to know in order to get franchisor ready or FDD ready. So
Yeah, I love that. It's a perfect time for introspection and self reflection. So you mentioned the blueprint that you're working on. I'd love to hear a bit more about that.
yeah, so the Franchisor Blueprint is our program where we teach you how to be that entrepreneur, and we're teaching you everything you need to know, and then you have the ability to go and implement. And of course, we help you with that implementation. Lots of templates, lots of tools and resources, and of course, being able to draw on the experience of successful entrepreneurs and franchisors to help you do that. So yeah, so we've been working really hard on that. We use the blueprint as our, we start with our foundation. We've got build out. We've got the building blocks, the tools you're going to need. Essentially, the outcome is a really solid franchise operating system. Mm-hmm. We've clearly identified your unique franchise proposition or your UFP. Again, what is it you do different and better than other franchisors as a business opportunity? So we're going kind of beyond that USP, the unique selling proposition, and really looking at it from a different perspective. What are you offering as a franchisor, as a business opportunity? Mm-hmm. And beginning with those people that you want to be your franchisees, beginning with them.
We'll get right back to the show, but do you feel frustrated trying to grow your franchise? Are you having trouble balancing your consumer and franchise development marketing? Do you wish there was an easier way? Imagine if you had a roadmap to take your franchise's marketing from costing you to making you money. That's why we've created the Franchise Growth Blueprint. To find out more, visit franchisegrowthblueprint.com. That's franchisegrowthblueprint.com. Now back to today's episode. You know what? I love that. I love the introspection of understanding what makes you as a franchise system really stand out. Because a lot of franchises and just businesses in general these days will start up and they'll just go and dive straight into marketing without really understanding what sets them apart. And it ends up, they're shooting themselves in the foot there because they don't know what messaging works, which personas or franchisees or customers to go after. So I love this system that you've created that really helps develop and clarify all these unknowns and things that people inevitably end up skipping.
Yeah, and it's funny because we really, in the foundation, we really start with identifying, and some might say, oh, well, isn't that part of your franchise recruitment? Well, yes, it is. But again, if we're going to create a franchise operating system, we better know who we want to attract. We need to know who our ideal franchise candidate is. We need to know about them and what they're seeking in an opportunity so that, we can create something that's going to be a match for them as well. I mean, adhering to our own core values and our own mission as an organization, but also taking into account what are they looking for? And, you brought me to another point of, basically around the franchise recruitment space. And so often we see franchisors leading with what they do and it's all about them. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the fundamental shifts of a successful franchisor is making it about the candidate and the lead. It's not about you, it's about them. It's about you getting to know them, finding out, where are they, what are they looking for? What are they seeking in an opportunity? And deciding if that's a match as to what you're going to offer in a franchise opportunity. So
totally. I love that focus on the customer or on the franchisee rather than yourself. Right. That is so important. I absolutely love that. So one question, Marietta, that I always love to ask is, what advice would you give to someone just starting out a franchise?
Well, I would say as a franchisor, I call it the 5-step to Fran prep. And so it might not be just one. So the first one is extremely profitable. The second one is a subject matter expert. How experienced are you in your particular area of business? And how equipped are you at kind of forecasting, if you will? No one has a crystal ball, but at foreseeing what might be needed if there are parts of your business that might need to be adapted to meet the needs of your customers. The third is, how do you remove yourself from your day-to-day operations? So having a plan to do that so that you're able to have a little bit more clarity and vision around the future and not just stuck in the day-to-day, if you will. 4 is really around acquiring and onboarding new clients. We mentioned that earlier. Really, do you have a solid, predictable, consistent way of attracting new customers, and then, of course, bringing them in to your business? And finally, what's your end game? How do you want this to end? Begin with the end in mind. Like, what is the goal of you as a franchisor? 5, 10, is 5 years, we want 50 units, and, 10 years, we want 100 units, and we want to have a, private equity kind of step in. I mean, those are very vague, I guess, or maybe they're probably more specific than anything. But, at least we have an idea of where we want to go so that we can kind of reverse engineer what that would look like. So I know that's not one, but that's basically my 5-step Fran prep.
No, I absolutely loved it. And you know what? Again, I feel like a broken record here, but I love the thought when it comes to just starting off, right? So for me personally, when I first initially started Cogneta, I started it because I was good at something. Yeah. I didn't start with the end in mind, as you mentioned. Like, what is that end goal? What is it in 5 to 10 years? Because ultimately, that really dictates how you grow your company or how you grow your franchise out, and especially the types of franchisees that you attract as well.
Right. It all, it has to kind of come together.
Totally. Okay. So, Marietta, any other mistakes that you see a lot of franchises making when starting out?
I think we kind of covered it all. I feel like we covered a lot of ground in a short period of time. So kudos to you. You asked great questions, and you really got me thinking. So, and I hope this would really help someone, have a deeper thought around whether or not they want to franchise their business, because that's probably one of the biggest decisions someone would make as an entrepreneur if they want to go down that path, or how they're going to scale if I'm going to scale my business, what's it look like? Is franchising an option for me? So those are really great questions. And I think we covered a lot in a very short period of time.
Awesome. Great. So I like to end every episode with something that I call the lightning round. So don't worry, it's very light, easy breezy questions. So First one is, what is your favorite tool or app that you can't live without?
Okay, that's an easy one. And it's probably a little bit self-serving, but it's not really, because it's of great value to emerging and any franchisor really. And I call it the Franchise Predictor. And that is a tool. It's an online tool that franchisors can ask candidates to complete, and it allows you to have a really great sense and identify if they're going to be a good fit. It basically around how are they going to perform as a franchisee. And, look, there's all kinds of metrics that come from that, but it is the only tool I know in the world that is designed for the franchise industry, validated by actual franchisees in a franchise system, and also third-party validated. So it's not the company that created the tool. I'm actually basically a licensee of that product in Canada, but it is validated by a university. So it's not the founder kind of saying, "Oh, this is what we think it should be." And pardon my little dog, the joys of a home office. I have 2 little dogs that are with me daily, and they must have just heard something. But so the Franchise Predictor, yes, that's my favorite tool.
Very cool. And where can people access that?
If they like, they can reach out to me. I can certainly set you up with a demo or get you more details and tools or more information about that particular tool.
Okay, cool. And what is your favorite book?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I had a sense you were going to, because you and I have had a conversation about this. And I am a big proponent of Donald Miller building a story brand. And I think in fact, it's kind of the first bit of homework that my clients do. And it's really about helping them figure out who do they want to be a hero to, and who's the hero of their story. Who's the hero of their story at the customer level, and who's the hero of their story at the franchisee level. And again, it's right back to begin with the end in mind. Who do we want to be? Who is the hero of our story? How are we going to solve their problem and be a guide to them? So a great read for any franchisor, especially when it comes to developing a franchise recruitment strategy.
I love it. So next question is, who is the franchise founder or leader that you look up to most?
Well, the first thing that kind of comes to mind for me is not actually a person. but probably an association or an organization. And I say that because that's really kind of will cover everything and anything you would ever need in the franchise space. And in Canada, we have the Canadian Franchise Association, the CFA. I've been a member, I've been involved with them for probably over 20 years, and a member as in my own company. It was the first thing I did was join. And that is like anything and everything you'd ever need to know. Every, really relevant and successful franchisor is a member of the CFA. They provide lots of education, just so many resources. And in the US, of course, the IFA, again, lots of knowledge, lots of connection to the leading experts in the franchise space. So I wouldn't say a person as much as I would say either one of those associations, or wherever you are in the world, the local or the National Franchise Association of your country is probably a really great place to start, and a really great place to get inspired on your franchise journey.
You know what? I love that answer, because I keep seeing, like tweets and emails and LinkedIn shares of like the CFA and the IFA just really sharing like invaluable resources of, from other franchise founders, from leaders such as yourself, on really how to grow in a profitable and predictable and healthy way. So I love that answer.
For sure. Yeah, totally. I mean, it's everything. So yeah.
And last answer is, where can people find out more about you and your company?
Yeah, so we have a website, ascendfranchise.com. Happy to connect on LinkedIn. It's Marietta Snetsinger, Marietta, and Snetsinger. Think of wedding singer, SNET, and then singer. So that's where you can find me, or you can email me, Marietta@ascendfranchise.com. You can call me if people still use the phone these days, not so often, or text me, 519-212-0309. And those are kind of all the ways you can find me right now.
Awesome. I love it. Marietta, thank you so much for being on the show. It was an absolute gold mine of information that you shared. I truly appreciate it, and I know the listeners do as well.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
All right. Thank you, and bye for now.
Take care.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Franchise Marketing Podcast. If you found this episode useful, share it with a friend and subscribe now so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. And until then, happy marketing.